Hey everybody, Marcus here. Now Zoomer girls live under the shadow of the girl boss era. Now it is assumed by them that one can lead a fulfilling life without a romantic partner. The guys, on the other hand, live in the incel shadow, assuming that they will most likely never find a compatible romantic partner. In both cases, it is asserted that a romantic relationship cannot be assumed to be part of one's life story. This means one cannot plan a future that necessitates a relationship. This would have been, well, absolutely unheard of to past generations. I mean, even millennials did not have an outlook that bleak as far as pairing off was concerned. No, this attitude seems to be new to Gen Z. The truth of this attitude seems to show up most prominently in the level of importance that Gen Z attributes to friendships. Friendships that, well, they gravely struggle to form due to the increased necessity for commonality between friends. Now, I posit that there is a causal link between the collapse of friendship and the collapse of romantic relationships. Namely, the needs previously met in a romantic relationship are being offloaded to friends. In other words, friends are now expected to act as surrogate romantic partners. Consequent to this, the standards for friendship formation have inflated due to this demand. But let me put this all into a diagram for clarity. Okay. In the past, we can generally assume two social realms: the transitory realm of work and friendship, and the permanent realm of family. Work and friendship by necessity were transitory because the needs of the family always took priority over one's job, coworkers, and one's friends. If a conflict ever emerged between a friend, employer, or non-family associate, the conflict would be resolved in favor of the family, the primary relationship. If the family needed more money, jobs and careers would be changed. If the family needed to move for any reason whatsoever, friendships would be left to die on the vine. It was assumed that there was no real loyalty to employers or friends as far as their position in relation to the family was concerned. Family always won. It always won because this was the permanent structure of one's life. So too, one could assume a form of betrayal from one's employer and friends. There was always the tacit understanding that a company is only loyal to you as far as you are useful to them and only for the time you are needed. Same with friends. It was assumed that your friends, if their families decided, would move across the world without a second thought about you. No one even saw this as a betrayal, actually. It was not perceived as betrayal because this was the tacit understanding when engaging in employment or friendship. Indeed, the family was everything. To many, it was not merely the nuclear family, but also the extended family. However, the nuclear family always took priority over the extended family. The extended family was never abandoned per se, though. They just became distant, at least for a time. I would posit that neglecting the extended family is a big mistake that a lot of people do make, but, that's a video for another day. The point is that family was blood. Everyone else were not. Every now and then, a friend could become adopted blood, but those friends were rare. Adopted blood would be friends of the family who in turn belonged, at least psychically, to the same category as extended family. Anyways, the point is that the primary social relationship was not only assumed to be part of your long-term life plan, but that it would be the dominant part of planning your future. The idea that a woman didn't need a man, or a man a woman, was just absurd. It was impossible, after all, to create this life structure without a romantic partner of the opposite sex. Hence, it was absurd to lead a life that did not prioritize this primary relationship as an end to one's life. Mothers would train their daughters to be wives. Fathers would train their sons to be husbands. Careers were, about bringing status and finances to the family for the good of the children. People knew what they were aiming to build for themselves, a family. And why? Because we understood that ultimately that is the only real source of meaning to one's life. Marriage was just a formalization ritual of this union, which was meant to see the plan to the end. Marriage was never a goal in itself. It was a stepping stone to the family. It was a stepping stone for meaning and fulfillment. Now, this is really important to understand. The family was angled at fulfillment. It was not merely some economic model for survival. Man cannot live on bread alone. If his spirit is crushed, He will put an end to his body willfully. Sure, the family can also drive a man to such an end, but the absence of a family is far more likely to lead to a bad end for both a man and a woman. And we are now seeing the truth of this reality play itself out. The only men who did not have families were, well, men of God, or those with similar callings like artists, scientists, and philosophers. There's not much out there you can do that gives actual meaning like that of a family. You really, really need to have a strong reason not to have a family if you want fulfillment. Money and power are not self-same to fulfillment. And clocking in to your 9 to 5 and then having a few beers with the boys will leave you empty as fuck the older you get. Now, remember, we're not talking about mere survival here. We're talking about thriving. One needs near nothing to survive, but mere physical survival is such a low bar to shoot for that it hardly constitutes a life worth living. And yet mere survival, even opulent survival, seems to be touted as a good thing. Stacking cash in a soulless occupation is a meaningless existence that will necessarily catch up to the adherent. I know enough cash stackers who have far too late realized their money is worthless in filling that existential hole that they possess in their soul. Indeed, the family was there because it met a great deal of non-material needs in addition to material needs. The family is a solution to existential dread. It's a powerful weapon against nihilism, and, in fact, it's the most accessible solution to nihilism. Today, the family is no longer assumed. Let us look at the graph of what I believe Zoomers are living in. You have two realms of relating. The first is still that of work and friendship. The second realm is still one of romance. Today, the romance realm no longer has any known progression. There are multiple entry points today. It can be the talking stage, a friend with benefit arrangement, a hookup, or an ambiguous category known as a situationship. It is completely unclear where any of these entry points may end up, as any one of them can, in theory, go anywhere else. The only thing that resembles a modern-day parallel to the classic model is the talking stage transitioning to coupledom. Well, maybe. Coupledom, on the other hand, may be a dead end because marriage and children cannot be assumed. Marriage carries the risk of divorce, so it's discouraged. There is no stigma to having children outside of marriage, so an unmarried family may form. Simply put, there is no longer a roadmap. Not in practice. In theory, you could still follow the old model, but I believe the lived experience of Gen Z is the model I am showcasing in the slide. Hence, people make their life plans as if there is no roadmap. Hence, a romantic relationship can no longer be assumed, therefore cannot be used as part of planning one's life. Relative to the romantic cesspool, friends and employment seem more stable. Hence, Gen Z have shifted their expectations from romance to work and friends as the place where their needs will be met. They assume and are repeatedly told that their career will be the source of meaning in their life, while friends will meet all their emotional needs. So, you get the girl boss who does not need a man. The girl boss assumes meaning will come from her career, and all her emotional needs will be met by her friends. Hence, she believes she can live a fulfilling life without a man. Now, older generations damn well know that work and career are pretty much universally soul-destroying grinds. Men only suffered because they pushed forward our families. As in, we made the best of careers as a necessary evil to funnel money to what did give us meaning: family. Twisted feminist logic assumed men derived meaning from their careers. In truth, men's careers were granted meaning only by virtue of these careers providing resources for our families. No family, no meaning in a career for a man. And this is why you have some Gen Z men abstaining from work. Because, well, it is completely pointless beyond the bare minimum to keep us fed, clothed, and under a roof. Work sucks. It's always sucked. And without a good reason to suffer through work, men choose not to suffer it any more than needed. Since men can generally be happy with few material things, we don't do more. The girl boss lie is already becoming apparent to women. Given more time, it will become apparent to all women. However, consequent to believing the girl boss lie, Gen Z expects more from their employers. Gen Z expects meaning from their jobs. But employers can't deliver. They can't deliver because most jobs are meaningless shit work. So, employers don't want Gen Z working for them, while Gen Z are traumatized by the reality of what a job actually is. The truth is what older generations have always known. Work is meaningless and soul-destroying for the most part. Employers have no loyalty to their employees. Your company does not care about you. The assumption that friendships can be leveraged to meet all of one's emotional needs is another lie that Gen Z is discovering. Friendships have always been fickle. If you have a friendship that lasted decades, it was in large part due to chance, external factors that coincidentally aligned to keep those friends in each other's lives that long. Friendships were never assumed to be permanent fixtures in your life under the old paradigm. Older generations knew of their implicit disposability and impermanence. Hence, friendships were never counted on to be a primary source of meeting one's emotional needs. The family was assumed to be the permanent fixture and the source of meeting emotional needs long term. But since Gen Z no longer assume a family in their life plan, they shift the burden of meeting their emotional needs onto their friends. When those friends fail to deliver, they feel betrayed. Also, due to the sensitivity of some emotional needs, Gen Z are becoming more picky with who they will accept as friends. Simply put, it looks like Gen Z are vetting friends on a standard closer to that of a romantic partner in the old paradigm. This is far too high a demand of a friend. No friend will tolerate the time sink needed to meet the intimacy needs of another person for long. Also, you need a great deal of rapport to even open up sufficiently to someone before it becomes possible for them to meet those needs. So, what ends up happening is that the friendships of Gen Z all become self-serving. Everyone in that friendship expects the others to meet their emotional needs. The result is that no one's emotional needs are met. Why? Because there is no one in the social circle with the emotional abundance to absorb the emotional purge from another. It's like having a bunch of starving people expecting other starving people to feed them. Friends can serve that function temporarily, as in, a friend in the old paradigm could act as a stopgap for meeting emotional needs of another friend when the primary relationship of the friend was in crisis. So, a man can offer emotional support for a couple of weeks to a buddy who, say, is fighting with his wife, but it is assumed that the buddy will make peace with his wife sooner or later, so he no longer needs to keep being this stopgap. Then, it is assumed that the favor will be reciprocated in the future. It was never assumed that the two men would permanently enter some homosocial relationship where they are each other's emotional tampons forever. Besides, same-sex intimacy is not the same in kind as cross-sex intimacy. The emotional support given to a man by a woman is different in kind to that of a man giving emotional support to another man. They are not interchangeable. So even if a man's male friends did go into this homosocial arrangement, it still would not be sufficient to have his emotional needs met. He needs the emotional support of a woman. The same works for women. A man giving emotional support to a woman hits different to that of her girlfriends giving her emotional support. But it is generally not possible to get emotional support from a member of the opposite sex outside of romance. Men won't tolerate supporting a woman emotionally without reciprocity of sex. Women won't tolerate giving emotional support to a man without the expectation of material gains in return, at least not for long in either exchange. Hence, the only reliable permanent source of emotional support from the opposite sex is in the context of a romantic relationship. So no, you cannot get your emotional needs met by friends in any reliable fashion. Friendship was never designed for this any more so than work was designed to give meaning. Work was designed to give money. Friendship, in turn, to act as a stopgap. The old model of the primacy of the family, well, it will return. Beyond the emotional needs people have, they do have material needs as well. The family was also an economic bulwark. Historically, men and women would pair off to support each other's survival. The children were needed to work the field. Today, inflation has made it near impossible for most people to live on their own. This means that people need to live with roommates. Well, if you form a couple, you can share the bills. Soon enough, you might even need to start to have kids who will need to work jobs to help support the household. We are heading back to feudalism, where only the aristocracy can afford to live outside the context of the family unit. This independence mentality does not work. Independence is not the highest goal. Interdependence is. A family is an interdependent unit that is complete in itself. It serves to meet all human needs, economic, emotional, and spiritual. There is no version of this story where someone can live in complete independence and thrive. They might do well for themselves, but they will not thrive. Friends are not a substitute for a relationship and family. In fact, the best friends are the ones who don't want anything from you other than the pleasure of your company. People who only want the pleasure of your company are people who have had all their needs met elsewhere. And where do you think those needs were met? They were met within the context of their family. And if you want to be that sort of caliber of friend, you too will need to have your needs met elsewhere. Thanks for listening. Go team.